Thank you all for being here. So we have a lot to get through. We started late. I'm really sorry. I want to make this little intro as brief as possible at the beginning here. Before we go any further, I'm in Los Angeles. I just want to acknowledge that's on the traditional territory of the Chumash and Tongva tribes. I think it's important to note that. My name is Amir Talai. I am a SAG-AFTRA member. I serve on the local board in LA. I've been a part of these You Are the Union Zooms since the beginning of the pandemic. It's basically a chance for members to connect with member leaders, get questions answered, be better informed. We call them You Are the Union because we kind of want to bridge the gap a little bit, right? The union's not a corporation or an employer, right? It's you, it's us, right? And if you want to have an impact on how it operates, you can do that, right? So now, to be clear, although I'm a board member and other member leaders might answer some questions at various points, no one on this Zoom is speaking for the union in an official capacity, right? I wish that our union had the resources to do this kind of thing regularly and through official channels and with like staff on hand. But because the union's income has been reduced over the last year, some of us are just taking the initiative to do things like this in an unofficial way. So we did something like this a month or two ago, focusing on our industry at kind of the height of the COVID surge. And now things have changed quite a bit, right? Everything's opening up, more and more people getting vaccinated. And so we want to focus on issues facing background performers. So I want to be transparent about this. I do not have any recent experience in background work. So maybe it's a funny choice for me to be leading this discussion. But on the other hand, I actually think I can be of use to this discussion precisely because I can kind of be a blank slate, right? In a weird way, it's almost like the You Are the Union that I hosted a little while ago about motherhood that Tiffany was on. I think if we're to succeed as a union, as a society, we need to show up for each other, right? I know it's kind of a buzzword, but that's what intersectionality is about, right? Like sort of recognizing the different intersections of identity we each have and then showing up for each other, right? So that's why a white guy should go to a Black Lives Matter march, a brown guy should attend a women's rights rally, and a background performer should fight for stunt safety, and a principal performer should fight for background protections, right? Okay, so I know a lot of you have questions. I received a lot of questions via email this week, or we received them, the various people on the panel. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat as soon as possible. What we'll do with your questions is, if they're straightforward and I know the answer, I'll go ahead and answer it. But more than likely, our three sort of panelists will be able to answer them. So we have Holly Pitrago, Melissa Cook, and Vincent Amaya with us. Vincent has been doing background for over 15 years. He's been on a wide variety of shows since we've gone back to work in the last year, been tested and retested, right? Holly is an actor and singer who's been working as a stand-in and rehearsal actor on multicams for years. And Holly got on a show in mid-September, right when the industry started opening up, and they're still going strong. And then Melissa, works as a rehearsal actor, a stand-in, a dialogue coach even. So the three of them have a lot more experience in this area than I do, going back before the pandemic and then during the pandemic. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from them in that. And I want to let everybody know that we're recording this Zoom in case any of our guests here or somehow I say something brilliant that we want to clip and send to people later. But if anybody gets on the Zoom and wants to ask any questions, we won't be putting your names or faces in those clips. If you want to ask any questions anonymously, go ahead and put that in the chat. And if you want to be on the Zoom to ask a question via video or share an experience that you had, just let us know. I believe The Zoom link is in the YouTube description. If it's not, Kevin or Robert, if you could do that, that would be really great. And then if you want to be on video, we'll just throw you on video. All right. Obviously, try to keep your comments brief so that we can get to as many people as possible. Okay, so that's all I had to say. A lot. I'm sorry. So let me bring up our co-panelists here. Melissa, Vincent, Holly, if you could activate your video and jump on, that would be fantastic. And let me look at the questions that we got this week, and see what we can do to answer them. I think the first sort of question that's on everybody's mind is, if I'm on a set and I see something that feels unsafe to me COVID-wise, who do I contact? So the first sort of most basic answer is, if you feel comfortable, go to an AD, right? A second AD, an AD that's in charge of background, or even in charge of principals, right? And let them know that, like, hey, I saw this, you know, I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but like, I saw this and I'm just wondering if that's how it's supposed to be. If you don't get a satisfactory answer or resolution to that, the union has a safety hotline, right? And that's 844 SAFER SET. So 844-723-3773. Call that, let us know, and then we can get into it for you, and we can, you know, do it anonymously. You know, you're not going to be putting your employment at risk for reporting an unsafe condition, but we need you to do that, right? I don't want you to think of that as like something dangerous, right? That's actually something that makes things safer for everybody else. So that's a really important note.
Amir, if I can jump in on that too.
Please, Vincent.
On one of my sets, we were working on a movie, and it was actually the AD who kept taking off the mask. I don't want to call anybody else. So one of the things I did was I actually looked for the COVID compliance officer and let them know. However, it took a while before they got to the AD. And one of the things I do have to say is speak up, because the AD was approaching me and I just simply asked, can you keep your mask on? And the AD was completely compliant, like, oh, I'm sorry. And a lot of times it's a memory thing. We're back to work. We haven't been back to work in a while, and it's a habit. So it's speak up. Speak up to an AD, and if it's the AD, speak up to the compliance officer, and even just remind a fellow coworker. We're all working together to speak up. Say, can you keep your mask on? Again, it's many times it's a memory thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Every person on the set has the right to approach the COVID compliance officer as well. And when you get to set, if you're not sure who that is, like, a lot of times you can kind of tell, but if you can't, ask the second AD, hey, just checking, who's the COVID compliance officer? And, you know, just so that I know, right? And it's good to sort of have that going in. Yeah, that's great.
Amir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to concur with that too. And first, let me apologize to everyone. My video was off only because we found with my internet at home, if my video is on, then you can't hear me. So unfortunately, this is our best solution. And but I just wanted to concur. I've been working on a show regularly 5 days a week. So I've had the opportunity to really get to know our COVID supervisors. And a lot of times our ADs are just super busy, but the COVID, I can't speak today. Our COVID supervisors, you know, that is their main duty. And it's always easy to just walk up and confidentially express concerns or ask any questions.
Great. Yes, thank you. Kevin, can you make sure that Melissa's video is on? Maybe just click on her name and great. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, there you are.
You can see me now? Because it's on my end. Sorry.
That's weird. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Not sure why that would be.
Strange. Yeah, because my video is on.
That's funny. Kevin, can you, as the host, click on Melissa's name on the right and see if it says like ask to turn on video or something like that. If it's not, we'll just continue to stare at your beautiful headshot whenever you have something to say, Melissa, but hopefully we can get that worked out.
Sorry, this is Kevin. I have no options that I have not used here with her.
Okay. Well, I don't want to spend all day figuring that out. I'd rather just move on to questions, but hopefully somehow that'll work itself out. We'll figure something out. But I want to get back to more questions. So let me ask actually any of you that want to chime in here. I've worked on a couple sets, and I have been tested 2 days before I started, right? So if I started shooting on a Monday, I would get tested Wednesday and Friday. How has it been working for y'all? How far in advance do you get tested? And do you get tested every single day?
I could jump in.
Great.
So again, being that I work every day on our show, when the series first started to shoot, we did test, gosh, I don't remember how many times offsite prior to our employment beginning. And now working Monday through Friday, we test Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As the country's gone through surges, though, we have more and more of late, for our safety, been asked early in the week to test and then wait for clearance. Our show, I love this about our show after a bad experience I had elsewhere, we only do PCR testing. There is no rapid testing on our show. So that sometimes means a little bit earlier call time if we have to test and wait for clearance. But it's a much more reliable test. You feel a lot more confident in the result and the results of everyone around you. So yeah, sometimes we have to come into the lot, test, go back to our cars, wait an hour and a half to get that clearance, and then come back in. And then other days, as the week goes on, if we've tested and waited for clearance enough, then our COVID supervisors may feel it's okay now to test and then begin work. And then if anyone were to be have a result come back positive, they would discreetly deal with that situation.
Okay, so if you get to the set on a Monday morning and your call is 7, and the first thing you do is test, and they want you to sit in your car for an hour and a half before you're allowed sort of on set into wardrobe, this and that, do you start getting paid at 7 or at 8:30?
At 7.
Okay,
Yes.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That's important.
Good question.
I want to put something in the chat. I'm gonna let me see if I can put it in the YouTube. Great. So I just put in the chat the return to work agreement, and it has some frequently asked questions in there, and a lot of useful stuff in there. So some people, especially early on, I don't know if this is still happening, and let me know, Melissa, Holly, Vincent, were you ever asked to sign a liability waiver? Some people had been asked to sign this that says, I'm working, and I understand that the employer assumes no risk if I get COVID on set. Were you asked to sign any of those? Because I know some people were.
Wow, I've yet to be asked to sign, and if I'm presented with it, I will not sign. Does any of the staff know if that's our right to work agreement?
No, it's not allowed. It's absolutely not allowed, and it's not enforceable. Even if you feel compelled to sign it, it's actually not enforceable either. I know that for a fact. So if anybody is asked to sign one of those at any point, definitely report that to the union, because that is not allowed.
I've not been asked to sign that, so.
Great.
Yes, I don't recall ever. Yeah, again, I've only been on this one show, except for that one time I ventured out, and I don't remember if they had us sign anything of that sort.
Great. Good. So some people have been asking, what is the payment for COVID tests? Now I have this info offhand, but do you guys know it too? Do you want to answer that question?
Sure. I know that my show is a Nickelodeon show. It's following all the TV theatrical. When a performer needs to come and test and it's not a work day, you are paid $100 as a background actor or a stand-in, and it counts as 1 day for work, as it is applicable to your health and pension days. The rate for the stand-in pay on my show is $209, and every day that we test and work, I know it's a percentage, because we get this little $2.61 add-on to our daily rate, just for having taken the test, in addition to the test time being our call time.
Yeah, so I think that's really important to clarify for people that that if you are tested as part of your work day, then that just goes into the hours that you worked. Like you were saying before, if your call time is 7 and you get tested at 7, but you have to sit in your car until 8:30, then the 7 through 8:30 just counts as part of your workday. It's not a test payment. But if you have to come in the day before you work, that's $100 for the day. And some people asked, why is it different for principals and background performers, right? For principals, it's actually $250. And for background performers, it's $100. I don't know why exactly, but I will say that there's an important other distinction, that test day, as you said, gets counted for your pension and health. And that's really important. That's something that principals don't have. That $250 doesn't get counted into our health benefits. But I think that makes a big difference for background performers, especially because if you have to come in to get tested on a separate day, you may not be able to work background at all on another show that day. Now, if you are asked to administer a test at home on a day,
I was just going to add that. Yeah, sorry. I realized I misspoke. That little tiny extra we get in our check is not because we tested that day. It's because we had to fill out at home on our own time the form that gets us on the lot, where we attest that we don't have symptoms and we haven't come in contact with anyone. But yes, so my production on hiatus weeks at times of surge in the country has provided for us at-home testing kits. And we've been paid a $20 stipend for those tests that we take at home and then drive to a FedEx drop box, and then results go to production.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the standard pay for at-home tests, both for background and principals, if I'm not mistaken. So let me ask y'all, how do you feel working on set right now? Generally, do you feel safe? I'd like to know that from the three of you, and anybody else who wants to let us know in the chat. Do you feel safe?
For me personally, I feel safe with everything that studios are doing. In the beginning, I would say I've worked on a few commercials in September. That was when I didn't really feel as safe. But now with testing, everybody getting a negative test, in addition to getting negative tests, we're still social distancing, still wearing masks, and still doing all the safety precautions, like closing out the buffets, separating the zones, not interacting with crew as much, even though that could be fun if you know some of the crew, but still the segregations. I feel safe because it's a double whammy, negative tests plus safety precautions, not just one or the other.
Yeah, great. Yeah. What about you, ladies?
Do you mind if I go first, Holly?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have to say, it depends on the day. Certain days, I know that our testing is done and we get our results back. Like if we're testing on Friday for Monday, because we have a Monday, Tuesday block and shoot, then knowing Friday's test results and then Monday morning stepping on, because they send a memo out saying if anyone's tested positive. So I know there's a rule. I don't know exactly what the rule says, but our production sends out an email letting us know if there's anyone testing positive, which is great. But, when you're doing a rehearsal and there's a run through and everyone's kind of gathered together, it's not possible to be 6 feet apart. So luckily, I'm also a teacher, or a professor, I should say. And so I was able to get my first vaccine for the, Pfizer. And so I'm going back to get my second one Sunday. And that does give me that extra layer of protection, I feel like. But I just know that being around so many people in an enclosed environment, it's just, you're taking a risk. And I think that is the case no matter what, like whether you're in a restaurant or at the grocery store, Costco, there's just always that chance that you could come in contact with the virus. And how well are you protected? I know with the mask and a shield, you feel safe, but you're still wondering, like, what are the chances, right? So I think we do the best we can to take as many precautions as possible, and we need to work and we need to live our lives, but there's always that fear that it's possible that something could happen and you could come in contact and get exposed. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are willing to go to work and take the risk, but there's just a lot to weigh in on the fact that there's, 80 to 100 people in a room together. So that's just my take on it.
I think that's if I could jump in, Holly, I think that's such an important thing that you just said, Melissa, that there's always a risk, right? I think that a lot of people have been saying, well, how can I be sure that I'm 100% safe? And it's like, you totally can't. Right. And I know that that's scary for some people, but I think that what the union has tried to do in cooperation with the other unions and with the producers is to make sets as safe as possible. Right. I forget who it was, but someone said there's no such thing as a safe set. There's only as safe as possible. We've taken so many precautions, but folks, if you don't feel comfortable yet, if you don't have your vaccine yet, if you feel like the precautions that are being taken are good but not good enough, then don't show up to work. Now, I know that's easier said than done, right? If people are struggling, but what the union has tried to do, because the union can't just shut down production, right? Because it doesn't have the legal authority to do that. What the union can do is just try to make things as safe as possible for those who want to work, right? So that if you want to work, if you need to work, you know that you have protections. And hopefully as this vaccine gets in more arms, we can feel even more safe.
Amir, can I just add one more point? The production did go above and beyond. I mean, they brought in these really fancy porta potties and basically said, don't use the regular bathrooms on the lot because vendors are in there and we can't control the environment. So knowing that they've controlled the environment as much as possible, zones, they built us pods so that we can sit in our pods in the audience area, in between takes, and just keeping your distance between actors and knowing what direction to go in on the stage. There's actually arrows to point you to the direction of which way you can go and what zone you are in. And because I'm so close to actors, they want to separate us so that we don't come in contact with any other the environment, so they've basically controlled the environment. So I definitely think they've done an excellent job to think of all the different opportunities and restrictions we need so that we can get back to work. So I hope I didn't scare anyone. I mean, I'm just one of those people that tends to analyze the situation. So, but I'm comfortable going to work. I just know that nothing's, complete, or there's always a chance. So, but yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah, that's funny. My cousin is an Air Force vet, and he asked me, when you walk into any situation, do you always look for an escape route? And I was like, no. He said, yeah, I guess that's my training. And it sounds like, yeah, there's certain people that are just going to be on high alert all the time, and it sounds like maybe you're one of those. Nothing
Well, I
wrong.
am studying for a PhD, so my job is to research and recognize, and so I guess, yeah. But feel free to ask me any questions.
Chantal said in the chat, and this is so true, every production has different ways to comply with the protocols, but overall feels very safe to me. Yeah, and I think that's apt, right? No set is going to be the same. And you talked about, Melissa, you talked about there's pods that you sit in. I would love to know what you mean by that. That sounds interesting.
So Disney built us wooden pods. They're basically, I have pictures. I'll have to figure out how to get them to you. Okay. But, and they put like a shower curtain in front so you can shut your curtain. It's really interesting. So you're in a box is what it is. It's a wooden box. And there's plastic windows on the sides and in the back. And then there's a shower curtain in the front. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's like, so it's like a stall where you sort of like just walk in and sort of wall yourself off, sort of. Oh, that's great. That seems
yeah,
like
we have laughers on our show and they have their own pods as well. So everyone's been assigned a pod. You have your name on it. The makeup crew was in the front, stand-in rehearsal actors are in the next row. The laughers are on the opposite side. So, you also have to deal with the fact that there's a lot of people sitting in the audience too, that have been tested and scheduled to be there to support the production. So, but we are kind of, what do you call it? We're contained, I would say. So if you're not on the floor, you're in your pod, which is kind of interesting. I've heard from a few other rehearsal actors that they've been given a room, like if the camera operators have a room, grips have a room, props have a room. So the stand-ins were 4 to a room, and they measured the size of the room so that there was equal amount of space. So it was one room had 4 stand-ins and the other room had 2, and they had monitors on both sides of the wall, but they weren't allowed to be on the floor for the rehearsal. So we are allowed on the floor, and others were not. They were asked to stay in their room until they were blocking. So it just depends on the production again.
Great. Wow. Holly, what about you? Do you feel safe right now? What is happening to make you feel safe, and maybe what is happening to make you not feel so safe?
Wow, this is so interesting. I loved hearing about your experience, Melissa. Yeah, I continue to say on my show, I feel like it's one of the safest places I can be. We have registered nurses in charge of COVID. We have KN95 masks, the testing I've described. We are sent home with these high quality masks for weekends and hiatuses. On my show, the second team is in a large room. There's 6 of us, and our chairs have been spaced. We have windows that remain open for fresh air. We have air purifiers hooked up, but we do go to set a lot. And I found as the season has gone on, they've become a little bit more lax. The first week was really, get away from the stage whenever you're not absolutely needed to be there. No one was really micromanaging that, though. They were leaving it up to you to use your own judgment. But now it's not such a big deal. It used to be a COVID person would come over and ask you, can you separate 1 inch, please? Like they practically have a ruler about how close people are together on set, and then quickly realized that just isn't possible all the time for us all to do our jobs. It's been fun to see how a lot of the COVID people, especially if they're registered nurses, are their reaction to entering the world of making television and seeing what it is we do. It's strange, but
Go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
It's funny that the COVID compliance officers, for people who haven't been on a ton of sets lately, they run the gamut from like former actors, set medics, registered nurses who've never been on a set before. So yeah, a lot of different and some, like ADs. So different experience levels and personalities.
yeah.
So right, so you might have a COVID compliance officer who has AD experience, who's like 6 feet, and then a nurse who might be hopefully a little gentler, or maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah, we also have the restrooms brought in just for us too. We have a lot of what Melissa described as really controlling our environment. We've had shows around us that, especially in the first weeks, were not behaving well at all. And so we had sort of the battle of production offices reporting them to the lot and making sure they stayed away from our territory for our own safety. And it was kind of interesting drama. But I wonder if this might be a good segue time for the one experience I had on another set that wasn't so good.
Please.
I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. This happened to me back in November over Thanksgiving. So it's been some time now. And it makes me want to present questions to the union. I still haven't been able to connect with anyone there for some feedback. But here's what happened to me. I finally got a chance to do background elsewhere, which was hard before because of working full time. I could never test for a show on a day I had off because I was working. And so with this Thanksgiving break, I had an opportunity and I showed up to a very major lot, a very major primetime network television set. I had tested in advance and was negative, but on the day when I showed up, they were doing the rapid testing. So I'm not a fan of the rapid testing. First of all, it wasn't discreet at all. I could see right away they were testing people. Everyone stand over to the side here, and they would come out and announce loudly in front of everyone, so-and-so, okay, yeah, and gesture that you could go on. So I knew already, gosh, if you weren't negative, this wouldn't be pretty. So sure enough, they call my name and it's beckoned me over in front of everyone. And they informed me that I was positive. And I was shocked because I've been nowhere. I live alone, been on this safe show, but I know it's possible. So I also became terrified. Now, I believe, and I'm again waiting for an answer from the union, our agreement with the industry says that if a positive test result is achieved, yes, you send the worker home, but for that worker's benefit as well, I think production needs to take some responsibility and you do a second test to confirm that positive result. And if it is different, you do a third test to break the tie, so to speak. Well, they informed me that their policy was that there is no retesting. So I simply sent home to quarantine for 10 days, told that a nurse would call me, and I was scared. When it finally happens to you, you realize, the mental health ramifications. You're worried about what could happen. Will I be asymptomatic? Will I be horribly ill? What about my other job? So I had a lot of horrible thoughts going on, and one of the first things I needed to do was call my regular job. So I called that COVID supervisor who's a registered nurse. And thankfully, only because I had this other job, I had an advocate. So I worry about other performers who don't have that advocate. He also knew my safety compliance behavior and was suspicious about 15-minute rapid tests. He conferred with our UPM and they chose, after at first trying to get me to get the first production to retest me, which they should have, I still believe. Leaving a background actor who's going to work on a show for one day, who doesn't have access to call sheets or crew lists, and I'm afraid I might be sick. I'm trying to hunt down information from this production about getting me retested in the middle of a surge where I also can't go to county testing on my own for days while my other job is hanging in the balance. So our UPM tested me, and the good news is I was negative. And I was negative. I have been ever since. Another safety issue for others that this shed a light on, as I was in touch with the nurse that had to keep track of my isolation, which I was not going to do now that I knew I was a false positive. She informed me after my isolation that the policy per the CDC is that if somebody has tested positive, has remained asymptomatic and serves their 10 days, you now can work on that lot and not test for 90 days. I said to her, but we know I was false positive. So you have a situation where if these rapid tests are allowed to go on, if they are not confirmed with a second and or third test, then you can have an employee re-enter that environment and now could be positive, but they're not testing them because they don't have to. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I reported it to the union. I wanted to know, was I wrong in interpreting the industry agreement at that time? If testing, again, to confirm, was not mandated by us, I had hoped someone at the union in ongoing talks would bring that topic up and see that it happened. Then I wondered, is it just because I was a background actor? If there had been a principal performer who was probably needed a lot more than myself, would they have retested them, not just sent them home thinking they were ill? Some of the things that came up.
So thank you for sharing that story. That's troubling on several levels, and I appreciate you being open about that. I want to address a couple things that you said. One is that that according to CDC guidelines, if you have tested positive, are asymptomatic, then you don't need to, then you can re-enter the workforce without testing for 90 days. While that may be true for CDC guidelines, that is not part of the return to work protocols. So I want everybody to know that's listening that, you know, it's basically a huge liability issue for the studios if they are to not test someone because like, well, they tested positive a month ago and now they're asymptomatic, so we're not going to test them. It's so much more worth it to them to just go ahead and test people. You know, I'm vaccinated, and someone's like, well, why are you getting tested when you go to shoot if you're vaccinated? And it's like, well, it's not because I might have it. I probably almost definitely don't, given that I'm vaccinated, but it's now become a part of the protocols and a liability issue for the studios that they're just going to test you. So I want people to not be so worried about that. Now I'm reading this from the return to work protocol FAQ, and I believe we shared this in the chat boxes. Yes. Okay. I know we shared it in the Zoom, and I'm pretty sure we shared it on YouTube too. What happens if I test positive for COVID-19 during the production? You will be directed to immediately self-quarantine, while at the same time, a second test will be run to confirm the diagnosis of the first positive result. If the tests contradict each other, a third test will be performed. So,
yep. So this did not happen for me.
So yeah, right there in black and white, they did you wrong. And so I'm glad that you reported that. And look, folks, these protocols are there to be followed. They are not always going to be followed, unfortunately, right? Sometimes people don't know. To your point, I would not be surprised if the fact that you're a background performer made them less interested in following protocols. You know, obviously, background performers are more marginalized than anybody else, probably. But so I'm glad that you reported that. I hope that after that production got their crap together on that point, and
me too.
Yeah, that's intense.
And also for a person's welfare, I wanted to share that with members, because even though our protocols aside and whether or not the union spoke to that production, I want you as an individual to understand rapid tests the way I was made to believe it. And the registered nurse told me that the problem with a rapid test, as opposed to the PCR, is the PCR tests for the genetic material of that virus, which is why it's so much more reliable. A rapid test only tests for a protein that's present when the virus is present. So it can mistake any other biological protein that you're producing as the virus. So if this happens to you, and of course you need to report it, and there's that avenue, but know as an individual who has to protect your own health, what I didn't quite know for about 48 hours, that there's this possibility, if you've been behaving well, safely, that it's false. And you can try to seek out your own testing if production is not doing what they're supposed to do, for your own peace of mind, because it can be very terrifying, mentally and physically.
I think that's generally very good advice, that if you get any kind of medical opinion, to get a second, right?
Yes.
So whether it's COVID or something else, I think that's pretty good. Obviously neither of us are medical professionals, but I just think it's a good, in general, it's a good idea to get second opinions.
Yeah. And I was so lucky to have the advice of a medical professional, a registered nurse from another show.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm putting something in the chat box now on both YouTube and Zoom. And this is the Background Actors Digest. I recently became aware of this, so I would love for one of you three, or all of you, to speak to what the Background Actors Digest is, why it's useful. I know that there were printed versions before. now it's a handy dandy PDF on the website. But let's talk about this this Background Actors Digest.
I'll go, if I can go ahead and start. One of the things I love about this Background Actors Digest is that our actual contract includes every single work group, principal actor, stunt, and it is huge. It is pretty thick if it's in writing. I don't know exactly how thick, but pretty thick. So one thing I love about the Background Actors Digest is that it pertains specifically to our work group. And the thick contract that I was referring to, it's just one contract. The Background Actors Digest has the TV theatrical contract. It has the front of the book contract. It has a lot of one-offs, or what we call specifically to one network, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, just to name a few specific networks. So if I have a question, I've actually been able to look it up. I've had an AD who didn't want to pay us for wardrobe. And he said, that's not part of the contract. But in fact, it was part of the we're working on front of the book contract. And I said, you're right. You don't pay it on the TV theatrical contract, but here, this is a different contract. Showed him when it was a physical print. And then we did get wardrobe. So it's simple as that. It's knowing, it helps us know our rights, knows what the SAG-AFTRA bargained for us. So we can't, even though we grant, again, Amir said we do feel marginalized, we still have rights and privileges per the contract, and we at least have to know what those are.
I can jump on and add to that as well. So I don't know if I mentioned, but I was elected a delegate for Los Angeles, and I'm on two committees, the stand-in committee and the Los Angeles Background Actors Committee. And the committee was instrumental in the creation of this informational page for background actors. It's an informational background actors digest that the committee came up with to answer important questions. It has FAQs. The link on the website actually has a bunch of information. I did go onto the website just to see if there was information on, specifically COVID testing and COVID information, and that's not there yet. But what it does really do is break down the rates across the board and what the bumps are, and information that you just wouldn't have readily available. And most of the time you're on your phone Googling. So if you go to that page, you can actually look and see exactly what it is you're looking for, like the cost of a smoke bump or getting wet, or, what a wardrobe fitting would pay you. So depending on which category you're in, like Vincent was speaking of, it's really important. And I actually have one in my car. So it's always great just to have it, because sometimes the ADs don't know what's going on and they look to someone on set to get them the answer, because they're so busy trying to juggle all the different departments and the needs that those departments have. So I say this in a very treading lightly way, is that if you have a good relationship with your ADs, it's a great opportunity to enlighten them and give them this information. If you don't really have that connection, sometimes you could come across as pushy, and there's that fine line. So it's very difficult, and using that as a tool just proves that, like, it's not hearsay. Like, this is in print and it's been negotiated, and we're owed that time, that money, that bump. So I think it's there for you to have to advocate for yourself, because we've advocated for you in those committees, in those, in the producers' contract rooms. Like, there's a lot of gray area in some cases. And so why not know exactly what is owed to you and what performance you've, contracted to, because when you get that voucher that morning, you really don't know what they're going to ask you to do. And every day is a different day. And so you have to fight battles. And sometimes the battle's already been fought for you. And other times you have to go against what is traditionally accepted and what was the old way. And I feel like every year we lose something, we don't gain anything. So please keep in mind that webpage on SAG-AFTRA's website and the digest, if you can get a physical copy of one, it does get updated. So I'd say go to the website as your best resource. But yeah, it was there for a reason. We've created it for a reason, and it's to help you get through the day.
I'm gonna put a link in the Zoom and on YouTube as well. I think this is the link that you're referring to. It's a huge sort of FAQ page for background actors specifically. There's so much information on the website, and what's great is the information on the website has been vetted by lawyers, vetted by staff, so you can be sure that it is accurate. Well, I think we all have the experience of being on a set or in the old days in an audition waiting room with an actor who's like, I heard that this and this and this, and it's like, is that true? That doesn't sound right. I'm not sure if that's true. So be careful of taking people's statements at face value, whether it's on set or whether it's some celebrity with a blue check mark. Guess what? Blue check mark doesn't mean you know what the heck you're talking about. So I put this link. I encourage all the background actors who are here or watching later to check it out. There is a wealth of information there. And again, download that Background Actors Digest. So much good information in there as well.
Amir, can I just bring up one more point, since you made me circle back in my mind about this? So that happened to me. I started this show, and we were told that the stand-ins that were 5 days had a schedule of COVID testing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the stand-ins that were scheduled for 3 days only had 2 days of testing, and it was a Tuesday, Friday. And so originally they had picked the dates of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if we were a Monday, Tuesday show, then on Wednesday, we would have to drive to the studio and test. And then we would get the $100 the voucher for the $100 for testing, because it was on a day that we weren't scheduled to work. So then they switched it over to Tuesday, Friday, so that we would already have been there. And it did come up that it was not, the rule wasn't being met, right? The rule that was negotiated with COVID compliance, that wasn't being met. So unfortunately, going to the AD was not the right decision. Going to the COVID compliance coordinator who sends you your testing states was the right way to go, because that COVID compliance officer is, his job or her job is to make sure that the production is meeting the requirements of the COVID process, right? So it went back and forth for a few days, and it turned out that the way they had structured it was fine. And so we actually lost out on that $100, which is fine. But we were just making sure that we were in compliance. And so be careful when you start hearing from other people like, no, this is not what you should be doing. Our show does it this way. Like, Holly has a really good setup. We've never been asked to take anything home. I feel like certain productions, certain companies will go the cheapest route possible because that's what they've been structured to do. So, and network is different from streaming. And I've heard from several people, I don't know if you saw the deadline. There was a Deadline article that came out before Christmas that said that CBS Radford was a cesspool of COVID. And it really hurt some people when they read that article. But every single show has been, on that lot, was shut down for one reason or another, whether it was a false positive test or positive tests or several positive tests. And so just be vigilant and be aware, and don't push anyone's buttons, because it's a very frustrating and stressful time. Make sure you do your homework. And I know people don't want to read on the website. I understand that, but like, that's why we came on today, is to really support you and help you to get the information you need so that you know it's true. And I'm on several different Facebook pages trying to help people really advocate for themselves, but stay out of trouble.
Yeah. Facebook generally is not a great way to stay out of trouble, but I appreciate that
Right.
you're doing your best. Yeah, because yeah, the thing is, oh boy, misinformation can go so viral on social media, right? One person just needs to say, well, I saw this, and then share, and all of a sudden people have the wrong idea about.
But it's just so scary, like Holly said, when you're just on a show for a day, like, you know, just standing in or background on a show for one day, and you don't know anyone on it, and you don't have access, and you're just wondering, like, what is this experience going to be like? And it's, you know, if you don't have that network, it's frightening, and you're more apt to say no to the job than say yes. And Central won't help you. They're not going to give you any details other than where to go and what time to be there. So, you know, that's why having that network and being able to reach out to someone to get some information is super helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly what my mindset now. I don't take work anywhere else. It's sad after what happened, and never knowing, since we don't get information, if I accept a show, I don't know what kind of test I'm going to get the day I show up. And if this happened again, I would be better armed with information, but the fact would remain that it would put my current job at risk. You know, if I were false positive but didn't know, I would be devastated to have to ask my production to come to bat for me again and pay out of their own pocket to retest me. And it's just not worth everything that happened, and possibly having to quarantine and lose the work that I have guaranteed. So I'm like kind of in this mode of not working anywhere else on hiatuses until my season is wrapped, so that I'm not putting myself or my current job at risk. Sad.
Yeah, that's understandable, but I think it's really wise of you to take a sort of macro view at it, right? And do what you feel comfortable with, and know that, you know, what you feel comfortable with.
But this shines a light on another problem, Amir. I'd love to let you, Amir, know that this happens with us in non-COVID times. Background actors, especially if you're not there regularly, but even if you are, production like makes it their mission to keep information from you. They do not usually permit the background actors to even look at a call sheet. And they have said it's because they don't want us to flip it over and see who all the people that work on the production are. There's this mistrust, like everyone working as a background actor must have a shady agenda, and they're just going to hound the producers for other work and auditions. But now COVID happens, and we don't have information at our fingertips when stuff does go wrong. We should, as employees during COVID or not during COVID, always have the same access to information as every other employee on that day, knowing who we can turn to for help, knowing how to report harassment, knowing who the COVID supervisors are, just knowing the names. How many of us have worked, an 8 hours into the day, you don't even know the AD's names and the PA's names who are telling you what to do, because they don't even introduce themselves. I don't know. It's just a real sore spot for me. If you don't trust the people you hire, then don't hire them. And when you do hire them, trust them, treat them with the same respect, and give them the same information that you would give every other employee that's there that day to help make your product.
Thank you so much for saying that, Holly. I totally agree with you. And I suspect that that's a conversation that background people have been having between each other for a very long time. I think,
but no one else, other categories need to help advocate for us.
I totally agree. And one of the things I actually hate about doing work right now is that I can't talk to anyone in background. Like we have, like, because of all the zones and masks and all of that stuff, like I can't talk to anybody. I generally, I like to talk to background people and be like, how's it going? Are you being treated okay? What's going on, right? I think it's really, really, like I said at the beginning, man, we need to fight for each other, right? I want background people fighting for stunt safety. I want principal actors fighting for principal actors fighting for background protections. And so for anybody who does principal work, who's watching now or later, know that that is part of your responsibility as a unionist, right? To be there for one another, right? If you see background being mistreated or marginalized, speak up, because they can't always, right? Your job as a principal tends to be better protected than a background person. So that's a privilege, right? So use your privilege, right? And we did a You Are the Union, I believe this summer, about performers with disabilities, and it's not to compare background performance but with performers with disabilities, but there is a similarity in the sense that these are people who are being marginalized, and it is incumbent upon the people with privilege to reach out and to be there for them, right? Look, that's the point of a union, right? Is better working conditions for us all.
Amen.
Yeah. So
Thank you so much.
no, thank you.
Yeah, I want to
Amen.
agree with that as well. I've been on shows where I've been hired for the whole season and they refuse to send us call sheets. And I was like, really?
Oh my God.
Like, this is ridiculous. How do I know, if my actor's in, when she's coming in, what do I need to do? How do I prepare? And that was really frustrating. And, it's the first AD that actually sends the information, just your email, to the production office to put you on the list. So, and I know a lot of single camera, they have the issue of getting the one-liner just to know what the schedule is. And I feel like if you're hired for the whole season, even though we all have a voucher that says at the end of the day you're terminated, you're part of that production. And my opinion is that we're part of camera. I feel frustrated that rehearsal actors and stand-ins are put into this position between background, but really, and especially in a single camera environment, it's the director of photography that hires you. And you have to go through usually an interview process. And you don't just have one boss on a multicam. You have your actor, your DP, your first AD, the second AD who tells you what time you're coming to work. I mean, you're reporting to like 5 people, and it's a process. And we just get lumped into this environment where, like, oh, you're not worthy, or, you're the last one to get information. And I had the craft service guy the other day turn over the one-liner and say, oh, I can't let you see that. I was so upset.
Yeah, like it's a national secrets getting out or something.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how upset I was. Like, I'm really upset with this person. I was like, you think you're better than me? I don't think so, buddy. Like,
yeah,
doing the job.
I mean, I know that we're laughing, but I think we're just laughing at the absurdity of the situation. It's ridiculous to treat people that way.
To not be able to know when you're working. And then, like, I don't know what people with childcare need to, like, even if you're just a background actor coming in for one day and they refuse to tell you what scenes there are, you're not supposed to ask, well, when will we wrap? Well, we never know. Anything could happen. Well, we know that. But to get just a general idea, people are paying for childcare. People need to communicate with their spouses. People might be caring for an elderly relative. It's like, we're human beings.
Well, his excuse was that it was a timed one-liner. So, we're not supposed to know how many hours it's going to take to shoot one scene. Like, really, that's pertinent information?
It's ridiculous.
Can I stop y'all for a second? You are talking about ways in which you are being marginalized and mistreated by ADs and by production as a whole.
Don't say that out loud.
No, but listen, the vast majority of people who are going to be watching this are going to be members of SAG-AFTRA. So let me ask y'all, what can I do as a principal? Because I can't really force production to change how they do things. I can't force an AD to be a respectful person. Like I don't have that power, right? Unless I'm like an A-lister. But can y'all share with me what I could do to show up for you on a set? Like I think one thing I've learned from you right now is from now on, I will always talk to my stand-in and say, hey, do you know when you're working for the rest of the week? Because I'm happy to tell you my shooting schedule, right? That seems really freaking basic. What else can principals do to stand up for you all?
Amir, I don't think you should do that because the schedule changes so frequently. And if they're a newbie, then they might take your word on that. And then, and then I feel like there's a hierarchy, right? So that might be dangerous.
Good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So and a lot of times, like the series regulars, they don't know our day rate. They don't know what we've been signed on for. We could just be there for an episode. We could be there for the whole season. So they don't know where we came from. It's kind of those, I feel like it's a case by case basis. Like if it's the first day and it's a pilot and you're talking to your stand-in, like, it would be interesting just to have that conversation. Like, how could I be there for you? I know just education is really important. Like I ask a lot of questions. I ask about contracts. I ask about rates. At this point, knowing how many episodes a series would get picked up for, that's important to me. Like how many weeks am I going to have work so that I can make my pension? I didn't pick actually. I was offered a position on a show that was a legacy AFTRA show. So I'm currently wrapping on an legacy AFTRA show. Do you know how hard it is to make pension for AFTRA? So your SAG pension is completely separate from your AFTRA pension. But if you take a show that's SAG or AFTRA, it counts towards your health insurance and you get a health credit. So there's all these decisions that have to be made. And we go through it, union members, whether your background, you're working background or standing in or, rehearsal acting, or even dialogue coaches get a voucher on a yellow union voucher as a background, then they give the bump on top of that. So just getting the information from the union and knowing who our background rep is at SAG-AFTRA so that you could reach out to them, it keeps you safe. If you start asking questions on the set, you could get yourself into a pickle and you don't want to bother your actor. I'm certain, like if you wanted to reach out to your stand-in or to talk to, the people on the set as an inquiry, just to be there to help them out. But because things happen so quickly and changes occur, you wouldn't be able to keep up with the information that you gave to that person.
So okay, so I just want to mirror that back so that I make sure I understand what you're saying, because I think this is an important point. So as a principal actor, if I want to be there for my stand-in or for other background performers, don't assume what they need. Don't offer up sort of information about scheduling or whatever, but just simply ask, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do to make your job easier? Is that what you're saying?
Not easier, but just have that dialogue where that person becomes like someone that you could advocate for and they could advocate for you. Because even on the side of like the production, directors have come to me and asked me like, hey, I want you to go to your actor and give them this note. And some feature actors don't want to take a note from a stand-in. They want it from the director themselves. But the director's like, no, I just rehearsed this with you. You know what you need to do. You go tell your actor. And so it becomes a conversation. It depends on how close you are with that person. And they've told me in the past, like, that's not how I rehearsed it all week. I'm not doing that. Let's go talk to the director. And we do it together. And sometimes it's a really uncomfortable situation. So if you have good rapport with your actor, it's a lot easier. And then you can start that dance, because you know, after 12 or 15 episodes, they're relying on you, and you're trying to give them notes in the middle of hair, in the middle of makeup, in the middle of like everyone running up to you. And it's just a fine line. And if you're personable and if you're comfortable and you receive the note as the actor, like Amir, I've got to give you a note and you're receiving it for me, that makes my job easier. You don't ask, how can I make it easier? You're just, if you see someone standing next to you waiting and waiting and waiting while you're doing hair and makeup and talking to producers, just know that we're there for you to give you a note.
And if I can just add one thing on that, Amir, another way principal actors can help out background actors, in addition to helping out stand-ins. The rule for background is that we don't talk to principal actors unless they come and talk to us. It's a rule. I understand it, or a principal actor may be trying to remember their lines and don't want to be interrupted. They may be trying to get in character. That I completely understand. But again, come and talk to a background actor. You said before, it's harder in times of COVID. But there was one show that I drove miles and miles with a 6 a.m. call time just because the principal actors said good morning to everyone. If it was a large call, they made a huge announcement. Good morning, thank you for being here. If it was a smaller call, they came up and shook everybody's hand. That made me feel comfortable. And again, if there were any issues and that actor came up and said hi to me, then I would bring it up if there were some issues and if they were worthy of bringing up. If it was a small issue like not getting a call sheet, that it didn't have to be brought up. But again, we are a union together, so principal actors, come talk to us. You don't have to say everything. Here's what you might need, when we really don't. It's just to piggyback on Melissa, what she said. But again, come and talk to us, say hi, be friendly with everybody, because we are working together. We're working long hours together. And even still, I've seen non-union background mess up the shot and it take 5 or 6 takes. And of course, principal actors don't want that either, just because of a non-union background. So working together will definitely help the day go by smoother. And again, you're a principal actor, you go ahead and come up yourself and talk to background. Background actors have to make the first move. I'm sorry, principal actors have to make the first move in starting a conversation.
Okay, so that's real simple. Just make the first move. Create space, like they say in the sort of activist world. Create space for a conversation, right? It's not go in and cape and sort of feel like you're the background actor's savior, but just create the space for a professional relationship and conversation. I love that.
Warmth is so wonderful. I have a moment where I just remembered Robin Williams coming to set and just saying hello to everyone. I mean, Danny DeVito does that, Tony Shalhoub. There's so many people that I could just think of that moment where they just said, like, how is your day going? Or, let's do this. And it changes the whole environment just to have someone smiling at you and inviting you to go to work with them, because we're all there working side by side, and it's a big day. Every day is a big day, right? So that warmth and that genuine, authentic greeting is welcoming, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amir, Holly speaking, back to the not giving us scheduling and staffing information. I really think leadership needs to make sure when we negotiate our contracts that these become serious discussion points at the very least. There's no reason the union can't communicate to all the producers how important this is to us. And perhaps it could even be codified that at the very least, the day's call sheet be posted somewhere in background holding, that everyone has one copy that they can walk up to and see what the schedule of the day is, what the names of people are that are supervising them, where they can go if they have any problems, just things of that nature.
That's great. I want to expand on that a little bit because you used a couple words that maybe beginners might not be too familiar with. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea, and I'm sure that's come up at W&Ws, which for anybody who doesn't know are the wages and working conditions meetings that we have whenever we're going into a renegotiation of a contract. So the way it might work at a W&W is that multiple background people might get up and say, here's something that I'd like to see in the next contract, somewhere where we can see the freaking call sheet, right? And so then our negotiators, and I've never been in a negotiation, so I can't speak, with experience to this, but what would happen is that potentially the negotiators could go in and as part of like, oh, we want more money, we want more, health contributions, we want this thing for background performers, right? It's a very standard thing. Now, what might happen in that negotiation is that the producers might say, okay, we'll give you that thing for background performers, but then we're going to lower background pay, or we're going to, put less money in health and pension. The people we negotiate against are not the nicest people, I'm just going to say. Not always. So if our negotiators were to take that out of a negotiation, they could still come back and use, as you said, Holly, use that as a discussion item, right? As something that isn't part of the negotiation, but as something that we talk about in ongoing discussions with the producers that like, look, we're not going to put it in the contract that you have to put a thing on the wall with the call sheet or this and that. But look, it's going to help our members, it's going to make for a better work environment, and it's not going to cost you any money. Look, we won't fine you if you don't do it, but look, it is a good and useful thing. So yeah, I again, I don't have experience with a negotiation, and I've never been in a background W&W, but that seems very doable and reasonable to me. So I definitely agree with you, Holly. I hope that the union does pursue that because
yeah, I think, Amir, I think we need more representation in that room just because of the size and the amount of people. Like, I understand there's a lot of series regular actors and day players but if you look at the pool, and because most people don't aspire to be a background actor, and some people fall into a stand-in position, right? And then they get used to being on set every day. So I know most stand-ins are auditioning, and we are actors. And, it's just we're trying to make our pension and health in a different way. And so having that voucher every day that says, hey, you're fired at the end of the day, you're lucky to get hired the next day, there has to be something in writing there to protect us. And, I'm studying leadership. I'm getting a PhD at Pepperdine, and I hope that I can work towards getting into that room to advocate and fight for all of the necessities that BG and second team really deserve, because it just doesn't make sense that they say that, oh, you can't have this, when it's a simple protocol that every production member on the crew has. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I want to circle back to COVID and working during COVID. I love when member leaders just put things in the comments as questions, even though they know the answers to them. But I'm going to read them anyway. So my friend Alyssa said, "Hey, what's going to happen when this Safeway Forward expires on April 30th?" And so I don't know the exact particulars of this, but I do know that when the studios and the unions put together this Safeway Forward back in the summer, the idea was that they'd circle back on April 30th, that it would sort of take us through April 30th. And so what's going to happen, as Linda Harcharik also posted in the comments, is that they're going to circle back. They're going to see, all right, so that was sort of how we did it for the last 8-9 months or so. How much longer do we need to keep doing it this way? Obviously, I'm not going to be in that room, so I can't speak to what they're going to decide. But that's something to know. I'd love to know from you three, are there any protocols that have come up in the last 9 months or so that you hope continue even after everyone in the world is vaccinated? Is there anything about the COVID protocols that has made your job any better, easier, simpler?
Well, if I can just jump in before answering that question, one thing you said is, how long do we have to do this? One thing I like to quote from Fauci is that nobody really determines the timeline. The virus determines the timeline. So if this contract has to be renegotiated all the time, it's not up to producers to decide. It's not even up to the SAG-AFTRA president to decide. It's the virus that decides. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Shout out Anthony Fauci.
There is a protocol that you have to be tested 48 hours before starting a new production. And I think that's important, because if everyone's starting brand new and it's a new environment and everyone's got a clean slate going in, then that makes me feel safe.
Now, but what about stuff that is sort of, let's assume that COVID's been eradicated. Is there anything that's going on right now that is working for you that you would like to see continue post COVID?
Definitely. I hear it a lot from tons of crew and fellow SAG-AFTRA members, just our general realization about distancing and hand washing and hygiene and illness. I don't know that everyone will always want to wear a mask, but perhaps we've learned how effective that can be if you have a cold, just to keep everyone else from getting what you've got, even if it's a minor illness. Yeah, I put minor in quotations because it's still a real bummer to work through things like that. I like the change in encouraging people to stay home when they don't feel well. For all of us in our industry, unless you have a contract for a certain period of time, we've always come to work sick because otherwise we don't get paid. You only get paid if you show up. And that's really, really hard. I've been lucky to work on shows with ADs where they have already had compassion for those moments, seeing that you're struggling, you've got a really bad cold, they'll approach you. Hey, others are uncomfortable with you being here. Maybe you should go home, tend to yourself and feel better. That will protect your coworkers. And you know what? We'll pay you for 8. But they don't have to do that. So maybe we could move toward some better sick policies between SAG-AFTRA and our producers.
Holly, if you look on your voucher, if you work for Entertainment Partners, you're actually accruing sick days. I'm aware of that, but what we're really concerned about is like having Central put a mark on our our account, or if the AD gets upset. But I definitely agree with you. Like, it's different times, and that they're going to take your temperature at security before you're even coming to set. So you're not going to come if you're sick, because they're not going to let you on anyway. So that definitely, it would be helpful to have that even after COVID is gone, because it kind of screens you and reminds you like, hey, don't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing that we used to call our employers and be like, hey, I think I have a contagious disease. And they used to be like, okay, well, you still need to come in and stand near all of us. Like, wow,
yes.
Why is that a good idea?
And if you don't, you're on the bad list, and
Right.
And
So
not paid. And
what I'm hearing from Holly is, it's okay to call in sick, but we just need it encouraged more from ADs. Like, yes, or in casting, yes, it's okay to call in sick, versus no, you still have to come, we're short-staffed.
Yeah, and that new sick leave policy with the state that came in before COVID is nice. It's helpful. It's something, but it's very little, and it's a lot of hoops to jump through. And maybe COVID has taught us that we need to make that more accessible. And if SAG-AFTRA negotiates with our producers what happens when a performer is sick without a contract, we can do that. We can develop language that is stronger than the state sick leave thing on our vouchers at Central.
I'm pretty sure if your child's sick, I know a stand-in who actually used that money that was accrued in their EP account because their child was sick and they couldn't go to work. So that's, you can call entertainment partners every day from 3 to 5, and you can actually find out how much time has accrued and what those guidelines or parameters are, because obviously no one wants to miss out on a day of work, but things happen, life happens. And if you have a good relationship, or you try and create a relationship with the ADs and with those casting agents, it really does help. Like being able to write someone an email, not be afraid to ask questions, I feel is important. And so definitely consider, as long as it's a respectful email, I don't see why you shouldn't have those opportunities to reach out.
I did want to mention for all of the Woody Schultz fans who were watching, Woody was supposed to be on this, but unfortunately his call time, he's actually shooting today, didn't end up allowing him to be here. So I did want to apologize for anyone who was hoping to see that sweet, sweet face of his. Woody is not here. I also wanted to mention, this goes to something that Vincent talked about earlier, that Vincent, you did a commercial back in September and that didn't feel all the way safe to you. So a lot of people have asked, so this return to work protocol, does that cover commercials? And the short answer is no, right? The return to work protocols was developed with the AMPTP, who basically represent the film and TV producers, along with other unions. But what I can tell you is that since the pandemic started, every commercial that wants to shoot has to clear it with the union, right? So they have to contact the union. They have to say, this is what we're shooting. These are the protocols that we're going to put into place. And according to my friend Katie Von Til, who is the chair of the National Commercial Performance Committee, since the pandemic started, SAG-AFTRA has individually signed off on over 2,000 commercial productions. Now, to Vincent's point, especially early on, some of those commercials didn't always keep their promises, didn't always follow every safety protocol the way Vincent or I would have. But I will say I'm definitely hearing fewer and fewer complaints or worries from people about commercials. I think people are really starting to understand what goes into a safer set. But I wanted to clarify that for anybody who was wondering about the difference between commercials and film and TV. And obviously that goes for principals as well as background performers. All right, looking at more questions. What would you three say has been one or two of the greatest challenges that you have faced in the last 6 months of work? I suspect this summer, if anybody worked this summer or this September, there was a lot of sort of like people being unsure about stuff. But in the last 6 months, as people sort of wised up, is there anything that you found particularly difficult? Have you encountered anyone just sort of blatantly ignoring safety guidelines, like not wearing masks or touching, all that stuff? What do you think?
One of the things, this was right in December, there was another person who was spreading misinformation on sets with the claim that this is what the mainstream media doesn't tell you, and they mentioned this and that you might grow a tail if you take the vaccine. And he even said, I'd rather get sick than take the vaccine. And I made sure I definitely kept my distance from that person, even told an AD about that's not the way to go. It's not the science. I tried to chime up a little bit, but he just tried to mock me. And I'm like, no. So it's not, there is bad apples out there, I'm sure, but very far and few between. There was another person who said that they were okay with the virus because it helped with population control. And I said, get over there. If you're going to talk to somebody like that, get away from me. I don't even want to hear that type of nonsense on set. So I think one of the challenges that I've run into, yes, I've run into a few bad apples, but those were very few and far between. And of course, they're very memorable because they are few and far between.
There's some anti-vaxxers who've been elected to various boards around the country. So I'm not going to name names, but I'm not one of them. Ladies, how about you? Have you
Well, we got a memo from ABC saying during the election that we weren't allowed to talk politics on the set. And I thought that was really interesting. Like they literally said, do not talk about politics on the set because
fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, it was pretty fascinating. But I did get a lecture on a shuttle ride from a guy that said, mark my words, Trump will be elected. And I said, okay, nice to talk to you. So I could see why they might have said that, because I mean, it's such like, it sends people into a tizzy. And we did do a scene where it was a flashback to the 1980s and we couldn't wear masks in that scene. And a lot of people were nervous about it. So, I mean, it's just, you have to accept that once you've accepted that day's work, that you will maybe be in an uncomfortable position. And, you know, as soon as we cut, we would put our mask back on. But yeah, it's just the environment we're in right now. So, but be sure that you want to go to set before you commit to that decision, because it can really hurt you if you just back out at the last minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Holly, what have been some of your biggest challenges the last 6 months or so?
So yeah, in general, people not taking things seriously enough. There were some learning curves at the beginning of our season shoot. You walk into a shared room and find someone sitting there without their mask on and putting you in the uncomfortable position of having to confront them. And then if necessary, down the road, report. And then it seemed like in the middle of our season, you know, people understand, oh, this is going to be taken seriously. I need to comply, but you know through conversations that they don't necessarily agree. And then I think a little bit of fatigue has been setting in now that more time has passed. And sometimes we see posts on social media of people outside of work then behaving in ways that can threaten the safety of your workplace when they come back. Maybe not wearing a mask and going out and having groups of people over. Yeah, and you have to navigate those waters, how to handle them, and if to speak up, and if so, to whom and how and when. And yeah, that is very challenging. You don't want to burn bridges, and you want to keep a good rapport with everyone with whom you're working, and yet also be safe.
Yeah, I imagine like being on set with someone and then looking at their Instagram from July and seeing that they were out having brunch with friends, and it's like, I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know if I want to be in this small room with you right now.
Exactly.
Speaking of the fact that certain actors are older, and knowing that they're more vulnerable to, you know, a bad result if they get COVID. So luckily, you know, after New Year's, we were at most production pushed to third week of January, which I thought was a really good call, because people weren't being as safe as they could have been. Like they really, you know, I think a lot of people are in denial and well, it's not going to happen to me, or I'll be fine. And I mean, we're asked to wear a mask and a shield when we're in the A zone near principals. And we have several actors that are older. I'm not going to say what age, but yeah, I'm concerned for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So we have about 15 minutes left, but our questions have actually dried up. So I'm happy to wrap a little early, but I want to continue to create space for the three of you. If you feel like there's anything that people should know about background in this time right now, is there anything that y'all wanted to talk about that you've experienced that you wanted to recommend to other background performers to keep in mind?
Yeah, I wanted to mention the health insurance eligibility just for those people that might have been eligible and lost their insurance and they were offered COBRA. I was one of those individuals, and basically there was, at first I thought it was a rumor, like, hey, guess what? You're going to be able to keep your health insurance. And I was like, nah, because my qualifying term, I guess it would be, or qualifying year starts it's fiscal year. So January 1 to December 31. And then my insurance kicks in on April 1 because it takes a quarter for it to go through, and then you're eligible, right? So on March 31st, which is in Wednesday, I believe, I'm no longer covered based on my qualifications that I, earned in 2019. I'm assuming that's what 2019 and well, wait, it would have been 2020. No, I'm still covered under 2019. And then my earnings from 2020 would have covered me through 2021. So basically, Biden's new, what was that? I forget what it was called, but Biden just
passed the new COVID
Relief Act.
Relief Act, yeah. I always forget the names. There's the heroes and the cares and the does and the.
So this new one, the one that just went through that gives you all new stimulus money, actually is going to pick up anyone eligible for COBRA starting on 4/1 through September 30th. So I was talking to some my second team on set, and some people lose their insurance on June 30th. They said, am I eligible? And I said, yes, you are. So we don't actually, it's the American Rescue Act, actually. So they were asking, like, how do I qualify for that? What do I need to do? And from what I understand, because I've been reading the website for SAG-AFTRA's pension and health, they don't know exactly the process of it flipping over, where the government's going to pay your premium for you. So originally my husband and I are on, and I guess it was like $480 a quarter or something.
Melissa, I just want to interrupt real quick. The government is not going to pay your health insurance premium. There's going to be a COBRA subsidy. I just want to make sure that it's for COBRA, not people who are on the regular plan. Please go ahead.
So, but the COBRA plan is the regular plan, from what I understand, because I called the SAG-AFTRA health insurance, and they said all of the benefits are the same. So, if you use the health, the West Side Health Center or the health centers, and you have people within the network, even though you're eligible for COBRA and it's not at the reduced rate. So it's, for me, it's like $1,400 a month. So yeah, I'm eligible, but can I afford it? Right. So then the what is this? The American Rescue Act is supposed to cover that. So just to sort of reiterate, the sure.
difference is, like, I, for example, was lucky enough to qualify regularly under the health plan. So the American Rescue Plan is not going to pay my insurance premium. But correct. If you lost your insurance and qualify for COBRA, correct. That's what the American Rescue Plan will cover. And I don't know the mechanisms of that, but Kevin Ashworth just shared a link in the chat. I see it on Zoom. I don't know if it's come through on YouTube yet, but I'm sure he'll take care of that. So yeah, that's a really important thing to bring up. If you have lost your health coverage and want to do COBRA, which basically gets you your health coverage back, but usually has a pretty big price tag, the American Rescue Plan is going to cover that. So I don't want to get into
throw it away. I just want to say that when you get the package in the mail, don't throw it away. Take a look at it, because it's going to tell you how you need to get through it. And you have to pay your last premium on time in order for you to be in good standings to qualify. So even though, because I originally looked at it and was like, I can't afford that. I'm not doing that, and then everyone was like, no, you should look into that. I think it's happening. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot more money. But if it's going to cover you from April 1 through September 30th, then you have the opportunity to get back on set and make your days. And from what I understand, you need 100 days now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did Kevin Ashworth say in the chat here? $0 premium Cobra available to eligible individuals starting April 1st. Stay tuned. We will post more information and specifics. In the meantime, log into your benefits manager to make sure your information is up to date. So
exactly.
That's
so that's what I wanted to share. Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No,
because it's important. I think we do get a lot of emails from SAG, from the foundation, from Pension and Health, and sometimes we just ignore those emails. So I feel like it's important for us to be diligent and look at what we are trying to communicate to our members.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the advice that I always give to every performer who's like, how can I be a better and more informed performer? Number one is read the emails that come from the union and that come from the health plan, because
or at least scan them.
Yeah, I know it can get to be a lot, but yo, that stuff is vetted by lawyers, vetted by staff, unlike the stuff that you see, that you might hear whispered on set or in some Facebook chat room or on Clubhouse. Oh God, Clubhouse. I hate Clubhouse. Yes. So read your emails. There's invaluable. I mean, look, there is information in your emails that might save you $1,400 a month. You're telling me that's not worth it? So read your emails.
Amazing.
Don't let them go to spam. Get on it.
Yeah. And we worked hard to try to communicate the opportunity for some COVID relief money through the SAG Foundation as well. Like I did a lot of texting and a lot of phone calls to past second team productions, just asking them like, how are you guys doing through COVID? Is there anything I can do to help you? And just sending links. And the funny thing about that was some people wrote back to me and said, oh, I got this link from a bank. It wants me to click on it. And I'm like, yeah, that's your money that you requested from the foundation. Like, don't throw that email away. They're like, it looks like spam. No, just transfer the money to your bank. It's not spam. So like I said, it's important to have a go-to person to help you get through these, the things that you're trying to do to get to set, evolve, jump the line, become a principal actor. We're all in it together. So if we can help each other, I think that's super important. Thanks, Amir, for hosting today too. I think it's really helpful to have you, advocate for us, and these webinars are super helpful. So
yes, I concur.
You mean me specifically as an ignoramus? I'm helpful?
Well, you as an ignoramus willing to learn and ask questions. So even though you claim you're an ignoramus, you don't want, this shows that you don't want to continue being an ignoramus. So that's what's important to us.
Well, I'm good. I'm glad that my ignorance came in handy today. One thing I want to add, if we're for everybody watching out here. One piece of advice I'd want to give would be to speak up. Your health is on the line. If you see something, say something, but also do your best to find the correct person. Usually the correct person is a COVID compliance officer. Sometimes it's an AD, but even if it's an AD not complying, speak up. You want to make sure you can continue working on sets. You want to make sure everyone can continue working on sets. You don't want that show to be shut down either because of one person, so you can continue working on that show. So speak up and don't sign any contracts that put your health at risk. Yeah, fantastic. Holly, any closing thoughts from you? This has been so educational for me. I hope it has been for the people watching. But any final thoughts, things you want fellow background performers to know, or want non-background performers to know about background?
Not that I can think off right offhand.
Okay.
Um,
Great. No,
I kind of wish I could hear more from our listeners. Being that I work on a show regularly, I'm more curious about the experience of people who need to jump from set to set and the challenges of getting enough work when you have to do so much advanced testing prior to work dates that automatically, even though we are compensated to some degree, is cutting into people's ability to get days and to make a full living. So I would love to hear if any of our attendees want to share how they're coping with all of that, how they're making the most of the situation.
We do have a few minutes. If anyone wants to let me know in the chat box what your experience has been as a background performer the last 6 months or so, let me know.
Amir, in the
Holly,
meantime,
Holly had a question about it. I want to say in January when we were about to start up, I was scheduled to work one day on a Monday and another day on a Wednesday, 2 different shows. I was testing twice a day for each show, just to do that. So, and that was worked out with the casting director because one was a recall, and then the other was a new show that was already booked. So, if it's testing related, I know casting directors can work it out. Casting directors know the one-liners. Casting directors know all the information. So I was lucky enough where a casting director went to bat for me to do that. So I'm not sure everybody's lucky enough, but scheduling, casting directors can work it out, especially if you're open with them. Even Central, they don't directly talk to each other about who they booked, what show they got, what type of people. So I have to sometimes be the person to talk to each one to figure something out.
Cool. Good to know that they're open for that. Because I get texts from Central all the time that I can't accept saying, we've offered you this availability. We're checking your availability, and their text will just say you have to test on X date. And as with work, that you just need to be wide open. They don't share anything about where it's going to be or what the time range might be, so that you can figure out if it fits into other tests or other work that you have. So they are open to picking up the phone and just saying, hey, here's my conundrum. Can you help me have more information about how I can get tested everywhere I need to be?
With Central, the casting directors are not in the office. So I've been able to, normally you have to leave a message. You can't talk to them directly, but I've gotten messages back saying, yes, we can accommodate. And then I have to say, yes, I'm available then, because I'm already testing on one day. I can figure that in the schedule.
That's awesome. So it would be so helpful, I think, to all of us in the industry if there was more of a central, pardon the pun there, more centrality to, it's not a word, to testing. Before I had my bad experience and I wanted to be able to be open to other jobs, I was able on my show to talk to my COVID supervisor, and he could say, hey, whenever you have a job offer, you can email me and I will give you your test result just in case you can get that other production to accept our PCR test from the same date that they want you to go test somewhere. Problem is, then I don't have access to anyone on the next production to facilitate that. So to think casting might help a little bit is uplifting.
Yeah. I want to reiterate one of Vincent's points that a viewer, Allison Stover, said. If you see principals on set not wearing masks or shields between takes, talk to the COVID person and make sure that they have it. Right? It is totally again, if you.
I'm gonna totally call you out, Amir, when I see you. I'm totally calling you out.
Do it. Well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm just gonna make out with you. That's my thing.
My boyfriend might not with that.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this phrase, but it's true. If you see something, say something, right? And that's whether your background, whether you're stand-in, whether you're a principal, a stunt person, whatever, right? It's look, these protocols are fantastic, but it's up to us to help enforce them and make sure they're enforced, right?
Also, if you don't feel safe saying anything to someone, we have that hotline. So sometimes Just
I'm
want
going
to
to give that hotline again for anybody who may not have been here at the top when we talked about it. I want everybody to put this in your phone. Write it down right now. Put it in your phone. Have this on you always. This is the SAG-AFTRA safety hotline, and it applies to whether you feel unsafe with respect to COVID protocols or anything else. It's 844 SAFER SET. Which is 844-723-3773. Have that number. There is always someone ready to take care of or to respond to your concerns. All right.
One last thought too, because it is pilot season and we're dealing with a lot of streaming television and new contracts. I think it's important to let people know that don't be afraid to call SAG-AFTRA 5757 Wilshire. That's our headquarters, to ask them about contracts and what our rate is, because there's a lot of rates out there. Some of them are higher than others depending on the contract and depending on whether the budget. So know going in what you've contracted to. And because I've actually had to call myself to find out, like, I know it's streaming and I know it's a certain budget, but what's my rate? And I think it's important to make sure that you don't have to ask those questions, that you have that information. And I go straight to the union for that.
That's great. That's great. Y'all, I really, really can't thank the three of you enough for your time today. Creating information and understanding for your fellow background performers, for people who do principal work. I think a lot of the concerns and experiences that you brought up are sort of universal to all performers, not specifically to background. And frankly, we're all members of the same union, whether you've got 0 lines, 1 line, or 100 lines. Like, we're all working together to create awesome movies, TV shows, commercials, and all that. So it's important that we show up for each other. And so I really just want to thank the three of you for showing up for membership today. So that's about all that we have for y'all watching right now, if you're watching this live or if you're watching after the fact. But look, I know that I am available on social media if anyone wants to reach out. If anyone has any questions after the fact, I will do my best to answer them or to point you in the direction of someone who can answer them. Vincent, Melissa, Holly, are y'all active on social? Are you encouraging people to reach out to you with questions? Or
Sure.
I mean, obviously staff is the best place to go with questions, but sometimes you like to connect with a fellow member and maybe talk about how to get more involved or this and that. I've got an open door. My DMs are open. No pressure on the three of you to be open. You've given enough of yourselves over the last couple hours and in all the committee work that you guys do. But do y'all want to tell anybody about your preferred socials?
I'm just on Facebook.
Right.
I mean, I'm on Facebook, but I do try to run some of the groups for people who have general questions and I know the answer or another member knows the answer. One of the groups I help run is the Los Angeles Union Background Actors. I try and post the link. The exact name of it is right there. I'll actually look up the link while Melissa talks.
It's pretty easy to remember. I think people can just put that into a Facebook search. Again, that group and us, we are not staff, so I don't want anyone to think that what might come from a Facebook group or from us is official and vetted. If you have a specific question, I always encourage people to go to staff to get the most accurate information possible. I just know that it's nice to connect as well and form community. So thanks for putting that in, Vincent. What about you, Melissa? Do you have a preferred social?
Yeah, so I teach social media marketing actually, so I have everything. But my Instagram is Melissa Cook MBA. M as in Melissa, B as in boy, A as in apple. Because originally I had an MBA, but now I'm going for the PhD. So
soon it will be Melissa Cook, PhD.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to fix
Woohoo!
that.
Dr. Cook.
So I had my qualifying exam last night. So I mean, I wish I could have seen all of you, or you could have seen me, but maybe it's a good thing that it's just my picture because I'm really tired.
Well, it's a lovely picture.
Yeah, and I think that picture's on the social because Melissa Cook on Facebook, there's a lot of them, but you'll see because it will say SAG-AFTRA. But for Instagram, it's Melissa Cook MBA, and I think I don't know. You don't need Snapchat, I don't think.
No, God, no, please no.
Wow.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the Zoom and the YouTube. This is going to take me a second, so everybody stop watching. It's about to get boring. But thank you all very much for being here. This has been great, and this replay will be available sometime within the next couple days or so. All right. Thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you, everybody.